Hello and welcome back to Let's Talk About Things. Today we're going to be talking about an idea I had for some Breath of the Wild DLC. On the most recent episode of the Two Days to the Camera podcast, me and Abigail were talking about our predictions for 2019 and what was going to release on the Nintendo Switch. One of the predictions we both had was talking about how there are going to be a lot of DLC for previous games to increase the life cycle a little bit. And this is really backed by the statements Nintendo President Shuntaro Furukawa talked about on wanting to do that exact same thing. So with that being said, Abigail had started to talk about how she thinks that there will be a expansion of Breath of the Wild, and similar in vein to Torna, the Golden Country for Xenoblade. Now, I kind of piggybacked off this and started talking about an idea I had, and I wanted to save that for a video. So here we are talking about that today. Now, my idea centers around you buying this DLC as kind of a separate story campaign for Breath of the Wild, not super related to the original. This DLC will be set after you beat Breath of the Wild. In fact, to play it, you'll have to have beaten Breath of the Wild. If you haven't beaten it yet, you're not going to be able to play this game. So when you start on this new adventure, a voice that you don't recognize is speaking to you, similarly how Zelda did before. And it's telling you to go talk to Limpa, because of course the player needs to be prompted, because or else how are you going to know to do anything in Breath of the Wild? It could be years before you even discover how you trigger your own DLC, so you're probably going to want to know how to do that. Now, if you don't want to listen to the voice, you can go off and do whatever you want to do, and it'll be fine. But if you do want to go and prompt the DLC, you go to Kakariko Village and you speak to Limpa. Once you speak to Limpa, she's going to give you a quest and send you to the specific beach. I don't know exactly where, but whatever, it's not really important. It'll ping a location for you to go to, and she's telling you that there's something there waiting for you to take you on your next journey. You go off and you get to that beach, and waiting for you is a familiar red boat. That's right, the King of Red Lions is waiting for you on the beach, and he's going to explain to you that the goddess is so impressed with you taking down Calamity Ganon that she now wants to offer you up a trial, hence the name of the DLC, Trials of the Goddess. You board the King of Red Lions and you sail off in the cutscene, of course, because this is pre-rendered and whatnot, to an island about the size of the Great Plateau, a little bit smaller, but about that size. On this island, you will be given the task to find 7 different shrines or locations like that in order to trigger the Trials of the Goddess, and we'll get into each trial individually in a second. You'll be able to do this whatever order you wish, same as Breath of the Wild, and you're going to have to find them within the environment of this new island. You can leave whenever you want and come back, but while you're there, you're doing this, and that's your main thing to do. It will be populated with some stuff, probably a shop and that kind of thing, and it's going to be populated with various new enemy types that we'll get in this expansion. So let's get into the trials themselves. Darunia's Trial. In Darunia's Trial, you'll have to scale up Mount Taramanch from Link's Awakening, and you're gonna have to summon the Windfish once you get to the very top of it. This is what you're tasked to do. Now, each location is going to be basically a new dungeon, but inspired on previous Zelda games. Of course, this one on Link's Awakening. And the mountain is going to be very treacherous, filled with more powerful enemies, based on enemies from Link's Awakening. And they're going to be very hard to beat, and it's going to be your classic dungeon. You're going to have puzzles, you're going to have all that stuff, because I know that's kind of a problem people had with Breath of the Wild, is that it just didn't have enough dungeons. So you'll get your traditional dungeon in this trial. Once you reach the top of the island, it's not just that easy. Of course, there's going to be something else there, and you're going to have to face off against Valoo, the dragon from Wind Waker. Now, I couldn't really find anyone I would like to pull from Link's Awakening as a boss, so I chose to bring in Valoo because of course that's a pretty good callback to what he did in Wind Waker. And once you face off against the mighty dragon, you will summon the Windfish and be transported back to the island, completing the trial. Nibiru's Trial. In Nibiru's Trial, you'll be transported to a land that is much darker than the one you know, and for good reason. The moon is falling, and if you don't complete this trial within the allotted time, I don't know, something 30 minutes or something, I don't know, something based like that, because 30 days, the moon is going to crash and destroy this realm. So you need to do this quickly. What do you need to do exactly? Well, you need to storm the Pirate's Fortress. That's right, the Pirate's Fortress from Majora's Mask is your next trial location. And in this, it's going to be a, more modernized version with an actual dungeon mechanics and whatnot within it, that you're going to be storming this to steal the Fierce Deity's Mask so you can take down Majora and save the land. Now, of course, you will get the Fierce Deity's Mask after fighting off against a bunch of pirates and whatnot, and then you make your way into the fight with Majora himself, using the Fierce Deity Mask transformation that'll give you increased power and whatnot for that fight. You're not going to be able to use this after that, but of course, for just that fight, you can't not have the Fierce Deity Mask. Rudo's Trial. In Rudo's Trial, you're going to be facing Ganon's Tower from A Link to the Past. Now, in this one, it's going to be, your classical, kind of like the Master Mode stuff they had in, like, Twilight Princess and whatnot. I think there's actually one of these in Breath of the Wild already. I'm not sure, because I don't have the DLC. But you're going to have to go for floor of challenges. Some will be puzzles, some will be difficult enemies, some will be like mini bosses, that kind of stuff. And you're just going to have to keep ascending until you get to the very top of the tower. Once you reach top of the tower, you're going to have to face off against Agahimn, the wizard from A Link Between... the wizard from A Link to the Past. You're going to fight him, and that will give you success in that trial. And this one's a little bit more cookie cutter and a little bit more simple than the other ones, but it's really the only location that I thought would translate super well and still be, a good location to put in here from A Link to the Past. Medli's Trial. For this trial, you awaken back in the King of Red Lions, and you might think for a second that you accidentally left the area and are going back to the mainland Hyrule. Incorrect. You suddenly see a ship appear before you, and it is attacking you, and you need to fight back and quickly. Once you defeat the ship, you board it to find that no one is aboard. It is a ghost ship. Literally, it's a ghost. That's a ship. You enter the ghost ship, and suddenly you're transported to some sort of weird fortress. You go through the dungeon as you would in any other Zelda game. At the very end, you're going to have to fight against Puppet Ganon from Wind Waker. That's right, you were just entering the Phantom ship from Wind Waker. And there you go, you fight Puppet Ganon, and once you defeat him, that is another trial under your belt. Midna's Trial. In Midna's Trial, a portal opens above you and sucks you into the realm of Twilight. Once there, you'll have to go through the Twilight Castle and find your way to the end in order to fight against Zant from Twilight Princess. Now, this is going to be kind of a scaled down version of Hyrule Castle, but with more puzzles and more dungeon elements to it. And of course, like I said, at the very end, you'll be fighting Zant in all his crazy gloriness because he's great. I really like Zant. I'm not even sure why, but I do. And once you've defeated Zant, you have completed yet another trial. Saria's Trial. For this trial, a gust of wind blows you into the air. At first, you're a little shocked, but then you remember you have a player glider. So take that out, and you navigate yourself to the island floating above you. Once you get there, you realize that this is just no simple island. It's a temple that's upside down. You just entered Skykeep from The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. You go through Skykeep, your basic dungeons. I keep repeating that because I don't know exactly what kind of dungeons they are. They're all inspired off the dungeons they originally are, with modernized takes on it and, adapted so they can fit with Breath of the Wild better. Once you go through the dungeon, you'll be facing off against Girahim himself, and once you defeat him, that's another trial that you've got under your belt. Rauru's Trial. In this trial, you'll be facing yet again in Hyrule Castle, but this one's not exactly how you remember. It's even more sick and twisted than the one in your homeland is. And at the epicenter of this, you'll have to fight against a familiar foe that you never thought you'd have to fight against. Yourself. You'll be fighting against Dark Link, the twisted version of the Hero of Time. And boy is he better at fighting than you are, but luckily you managed to take him out, completing the final trial. And of course, the trials are named after the 7 sages as well as Medli and Midna because Impa and Zelda, of course, are characters that are already in this game, so I had to substitute them, and I chose Midna and Medli because I thought they were the best representatives from Twilight Princess and Wind Waker, respectively. Now, you've completed all the trials, and you might think that might be it. You got a couple dungeons and some cool boss fights, and alright, cool enough, that's probably not worth the money. But there is more to do still. Of course, you still have the island to adventure on, and once you've completed it, the voice returns, and now you realize it's coming from your sword, and suddenly a figure jumps out in front of you. It's Fi from Skyward Sword, and I know a lot of you are probably not going to want to see her again, but I promise you she's not as bad this time around. This time she'll be asking you if you're sure you want to take on the final challenge. There's one more thing for you to try and do here, and then you have proven yourself to the goddess. Of course, you answer yes, and Fi will send you off in a new path that you have not seen here before, and you'll go up into, think of like Spear Pillar from Pokemon type of area, and there the sages are in ghost form, there to greet you, and you're given one last chance to turn back, but of course you press on and you go on to the final trial, the final obstacle in your way to prove yourself, and that is a fight with Ganondorf, the Demon King himself. This had to have finished off with a fight against Ganondorf, and I'm not talking Ganondorf. And this Ganondorf is an amalgamation of a bunch of other Ganondorfs. He's going to take pieces from Twilight Princess, and from Demise, and from Wind Waker Ganon, and from, of course, Ocarina of Time Ganon. He'll be an amalgamation of all those characters. Probably call him like Spirit Ganon or something, because, you know, Ganondorf is kind of probably dead at this point, considering it seems to be in the same timeline as Ocarina of Time, so for that reason. But either way, you fight off against Ganondorf, and of course you win because you're the hero, and that is your completion of the goddess. You've proven yourself, and you can now return to the mainland. So what do you get for completing this? Well, you get to keep all this equipment that you've gained that will be based on each of the zones. So you'll get new Twilight Princess equipment and new, equipment based on the sages and based on characters from those games and other stuff like that. Past weapons Link has had in past games, all of those will be available to you now, and of course you also get your Fierce Deity Mask, which you can use in pivotal moments, because remember, it'll drain your HP, but you can use it against your fight against Ganondorf if you want to redo that, or if you want to fight against Ganon himself in the mainland. On top of all that, new stuff has been unlocked in the island. Now you have the ability to face off against a boss rush mode. And this might seem like a simple thing, but some of you would probably want to redo the trials. You can do that as well, and if you just want to fight the bosses, you can do that, and you can face off against all the bosses from the expansion, as well as Calamity Ganon from the original Breath of the Wild playthrough. And the Blight Ganons will be here as well. You're all done, you return to the King of Red Lions, and he takes you back to the mainland Hyrule, and you'll get one final cutscene to wrap Breath of the Wild up completely, and it'll be you and Zelda riding off into the sunset, living happily ever after, and that is the end of Breath of the Wild. Now, this obviously is something a little bit more fanficky and a little bit more because, like, it's all like, oh, look, it's Twilight Princess, oh, look, it's Ocarina of Time, oh, look, it's this. But that was the point. I wanted this final area to be a celebration of Zelda and what it has become, and because people have already stated that we haven't got enough dungeons, or there's not enough bosses, or I didn't like the bosses, or all this stuff, I thought this would be a good opportunity to fix all those with these trials. And of course, the trials would be more in-depth than what I'm talking about. You have to remember that Wind Waker and Breath of the Wild are the only games that I've played in the Zelda franchise, so I'm not super familiar with dungeons and whatnot at this point, but yeah, it'll have all the stuff that fans love, and it'll of course have callbacks to the original dungeons from the original games they appeared in. So guys, that's it for this video and the trials of the goddess. Let me know in the comments down below, what did you think about the trials, and what would you like to add to it or take away from it? What are your own ideas for Breath of the Wild DLC? You can also keep the discussion going over on our Discord server if you want to join that, link in the description below, as well as on the channel itself in the icon slot thing. And of course, I would like to link out to my previous Breath of the Wild video where I talked about my ideas for Breath of the Wild 2. Alright guys, that's it for today, and remember to like, comment, favorite, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.